Before I jump to the next panel, I did talk a little bit about the difference between solving real problems and not really solving problems. The next panel is solving a serious problem, and it's that of laziness, and it grows every single day within each of us. And they're really making it a lot easier on us to do all kinds of stuff. So please bring out the folks for our convenience economy, Matt Salzberg from Blue Apron, Rob Spiro from Good Eggs, Tony Shu from DoorDash, and our moderator, Anthony Ha.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So that was a pretty good setup, right? I thought Jordan did a good job with that. Do you agree that you're making us lazier? Well, I'll put Matt on the spot. What do you think?
I think for us, I mean, all of us have different businesses. What we do is we deliver.
You're going to throw the other guys under the bus.
Well, I'm not going to speak for them, but what I'll say is, what we do is we deliver recipes and ingredients for people to help them cook at home. And our typical customer is the kind of person who likes to use their hands, who likes to get back into the kitchen, who likes cooking. And so in some ways, we're making that a lot easier for them, so it's more convenient. But at the same time, the laziest thing you can do is go out and order pizza and have that delivered to you. And so our customers are actually quite industrious, and they really like cooking and doing things themselves.
Tony, do you agree that ordering pizza is lazy?
I don't think so if it gives you back more time. And if you think about a lot of our customers, I mean, a mom who has to deal with all the issues that she deals with on a daily basis and then has to, roll a stroller into a restaurant or something like that, if she can get it delivered, then why not?
Right. So, I mean, it sounds like what you guys are saying is essentially that by making certain things more convenient, you're freeing up time to sort of do to focus on other things maybe that are more important. Is that fair, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, Good Eggs is more convenient than going to a supermarket, but what's really special about it is the quality of the food, and it's food that you're not going to find at the supermarket, and so it makes this better food supply chain from these better producers more convenient than the industrial food supply chain, and so we're using convenience as a way to kind of make the world more just and get better food to people.
Right, so I should also mention that we're doing something incredibly cruel, which is that we're having a panel about food, or at least partially about food, right before lunch. So we're going to have to try to be extra entertaining so people aren't just like sitting there and letting their stomachs rumble. And we're also going to do sort of a slightly risky experiment, which is I'm going to go through each of the services and see who uses them. Does anyone here use Good Eggs? Raise your hand if you use Good Eggs. All right, we've got a couple. We got a few. What about DoorDash? Who here uses DoorDash? All right, and the last is Blue Apron. Who uses Blue Apron? All right, we got a few users in the house for each of them. Seems like you've got some good opportunity to introduce them to what you guys do. And I'm about to provide you with that opportunity, which is we talk about this idea of making life more convenient. Can you maybe distill how you make life more convenient in 1 or 2 sentences? And we'll let Tony go first this time.
Sure. So, I mean, for customers, we bring food on the table for you in under 45 minutes from over 1,200 restaurants. For the drivers in our fleet, the thousands of them who are working so hard, it's a terrific, convenient way to make extra cash. And for the merchants that we partner with, some of whom earn $500,000 a year with us, it's a terrific opportunity to do what they do and just earn extra business.
What about you, Rob?
Yeah, Good Eggs is a way to do your grocery shopping online, but have all the food come from these really high-quality local farms, ranches, food producers. It's more convenient than grocery shopping. It's also less expensive than most grocery shopping. And it's better food. And so we make it more convenient to get the food that you want to get. It's almost like the most comprehensive farmer's market that you've ever been to. And you go to the farmer's market, and it's fun, and it's great to bring your kids there, but it is awfully inconvenient to do your full grocery shopping for the week there. And so if you can have that quality food delivered to your home, then we deliver both promises.
All right, and what about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, our mission as a company is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everybody. And so it's a little different than what these guys do. But if you think about how difficult it is to cook great recipes at home, like the kind of recipes you'd see on the Food Network, or really incredible, interesting things with interesting ingredients, it's very hard to find all those ingredients in one place. It's impossible to find them in exactly the right amounts. And certainly, it would take you many hours of prep and planning time to do that. And so we assemble all of that into one place to make it really easy for people to cook at home, and also provide it for them an experience that's a lot more affordable than what they could get at a supermarket. So convenience is absolutely an important part of what we do.
Right. So changing topics a bit, Rob, you guys had some news that you announced earlier this week, which is that you'd raised a $21 million round led by Index Ventures.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with all that money?
Well, we're really excited to partner with Index and continue to grow. I mean, right now we're trying to meet demand and scale up with the demand that's there for this kind of food. And so we're going to use the money to continue to build a great service, make it even more convenient for shoppers, make it even more convenient for the producers on our network, and then we'll also expand to new cities at the beginning of next year.
Right, and so, I think for a lot of people, $21 million is a pretty big round, but actually all of the startups on stage, you've raised all significant venture rounds, and there's been, a lot of money going into the space. I think Sprig, Caviar, Postmates, Munchery, they've all raised, rounds of more than $10 million that we've covered recently. Does anyone sort of want to venture an explanation why so much investment is happening now?
I mean, for me, I think for us, and our business is very different than those businesses, but in terms of the food industry broadly, which is broad and has lots of different kinds of companies in it.
We're kind of bunching a bunch of things together.
But it's kind of the biggest industry that exists that doesn't have internet penetration today, right? So if you think about, it's $1 trillion industry, and today most people do not get their food online. And so people are getting more comfortable with e-commerce. People are getting more comfortable buying things on the internet, every year. And so you'll just see that slowly continue to tick away as more and more stuff is bought online. And I think, we've reached a little bit of a tipping point in terms of people's comfort with technology. But in particular, at the same time, food is now fun in a way that it hadn't been in prior generations. People like trying new ingredients. They like trying new restaurants. They like working with different high-end suppliers, and they like to know where their food's coming from. So I think consumer interest in food and cooking lifestyle, which is what we're all about, and I think is very much what you guys are about too, is just higher than it's ever been. And so when you have a great product that enables people to interact with and do those things, I think it just, people love it.
Mm-hmm. And Tony, I know DoorDash has plans to sort of expand beyond food at some point, which we'll get into, but you did decide to start with food. Is that kind of why you decided to start there?
Well, one of the reasons we started with food was actually that's where the largest underserved need was, right? Both from a merchant point of view and also from customers. The vast majority of merchants, restaurants in this country do not deliver. And as a result, that's why we started there, to get into the habit of folks using actually delivery. If you think about what we're trying to do, we see last mile delivery very much where e-commerce was in 1995 when Amazon just got started, right? Things now are actually now possible both from a supply point of view to allow that delivery to happen, and the demand, as Matt was alluding to, is actually wanting to seek last-minute convenience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's some combination of things that have happened in the industry that allows tech companies to build really convenient, basically logistics businesses. It's some combination of mobile apps and an on-demand workforce and real-time logistics on the ground with transportation vehicles, and whatever it is, it's led to infrastructure companies, which is essentially what we're all building. Logistics companies that have the brain of a technology company trying to offer this more convenient service. It's happening in food, it's happening in lots of industries, and it's pretty capital intensive relative to other kinds of apps.
Right. Matt, do you consider Blue Apron a logistics company?
We're a lot of kinds of companies. I mean, the most difficult part about our business is that it requires a massively diverse skill set to scale up. And we operate large refrigerated distribution centers around the country. We have hundreds and hundreds of employees who receive truckload quantities of food just in time, portion package, ship it, and kit it up and send it to customers nationwide. And so in terms of our internal time spent, logistics is a huge component of what we do, and being able to find seasonal, interesting suppliers and working on that supply chain, because actually our business, and I don't know how much you know about the way our product works specifically, but every single week we have 6 completely new recipes, and we change our recipes 100% every week. And so we work on these cycles where we change our suppliers and our supply chain weekly, which is like insane compared to when you think about what a typical business like a Whole Foods or another grocery company might do, where they're trying to find items that they can just sell the same stuff week over week after week. One of the really exciting benefits that we provide to customers is that diversity and that learning and that variety and new and interesting and fun suppliers. And so we spend a lot of time building an infrastructure that allows us to operate on these weekly cycles, provide these products to customers, and at the same time, in some ways, we're like a manufacturing business because we run our own centers and we have to portion, package, and ship. And so being able to offer these things at a better value than the grocery store means we have to be logistically very efficient so we can offer better prices to people than they get elsewhere.
So that all sounds pretty impressive, and I imagine it's not an easy thing to set up, especially when you're first starting out and you haven't necessarily raised the millions and millions of dollars that you guys have. I mean, it'd be interesting, I think, just to maybe quickly go down and have each of you talk a little bit about how you first delivered the service that you do when you presumably didn't have the infrastructure that you have now. Maybe we'll start with Tony again.
Sure. So we started the service actually on Stanford campus, and so the four of us founders were actually the initial drivers, right? And we built something very simple for just students on campus to use. They kind of fell in love with it, told everybody about it, and we started realizing that, oh wow, there's all this demand, someone's got to fulfill it. And so we were the drivers, and we ultimately realized that you actually have to build products for each one of the audiences that we served. You have to build products for the drivers, you have to build products for the merchants. Obviously, there's a consumer product, and most importantly, at DoorDash, we spend most of our time on the technology that routes everything together, that figures out how long some meal takes to prepare, that figures out road conditions, that figures out driver performance, so on and so forth. So in the beginning, it was just us getting dirty, and now we're building the technology to scale it.
So as I understand it, I mean, part of the argument is that the technology is what distinguishes you from other food delivery services. And that's what, for example, like I've been on the end of like a seamless delivery where I realized I was probably the last person on the route because I got this really cold order. So that's part of the argument of why someone would use DoorDash now. Initially, was it just like, hey, we drive real fast?
No, I mean initially it was no one actually delivered, right? So what I think a lot of consumers sometimes misunderstand is that a service like a Seamless or a Grubhub, they don't actually deliver, right? They show you menus of restaurants that offer delivery,
right.
But if there are no restaurants that deliver, then there is no Seamless or a Grubhub, right? And so in the beginning, the reason why we had to deliver it was because the restaurants never delivered it themselves, right? And then over time, absolutely, because we control every point of the experience, it's the technology that ultimately allows us to offer that performance.
Right. And Rob, how did you first, I guess, get those, suppliers into the system?
Yeah, when we started, we were just building tools for these small farms and ranches and bakers who were making food that was higher quality and trying to sell at farmers markets. And so we started to piece together this unique supply chain. And then when we started to offer a service to shoppers where you could just shop online and get your groceries from these producers, the demand took off faster than we anticipated. We started buying as many refrigerators as we could to stuff into our tech office. We actually couldn't fit our desks and engineers in there.
How many refrigerators did you have at that
We had this
point?
wall of, we called them merchandisers, of these pull-in refrigerators, and realized actually we need to be in the business of building refrigerated warehouses, and ordered our first walk-in, and then from there started becoming experts at how to build walk-in refrigeration in food hubs, and now we have food hubs around the country, and we have hundreds of employees working there, and we still use some merchandisers, but not in the core way that we used to.
Do you still have refrigerated food in your office?
We still have we have a lot of refrigerated food in our office. Our office is in our food hub in San Francisco.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And Matt, how did you, can you talk about as I understand it, you were actually packing the boxes yourself
Yeah, I mean, when we started our business, our very first week, we just begged 20 of our friends to try our product, and me and my two co-founders, Ilya and Matt, we literally went to the grocery store, bought a bunch of ingredients, portioned and packed it ourselves in a tiny little kitchen in Long Island City, we're based in New York. And it just kind of grew from there. And their friends told their friends, and we started building a deeper supply chain, direct with farms, direct with family businesses, similar kind of people that Good Eggs would work with. And we just continued to grow it from there. We eventually took on a refrigerated warehouse, which we needed because we ran out of space, and it just kept growing.
So Matt, I'm going to kind of just to kind of push you a little on sort of what's appealing about Blue Apron. There's a TechCrunch writer who I'm not going to name, but when he first heard about, I think it was either Blue Apron or one of the competing services, and he said, wait a second, I have to pay $10. The food comes to me, and I still have to cook it? Are you kidding me? Do you sometimes get that skepticism?
Well, clearly there's a certain kind of person in the world who hates cooking. Our business celebrates cooking and the love of cooking. And, most people in the country cook. And it's fun, and we're trying to make it even more fun with our service. And so if you're just trying to get full as quickly and cheaply as possible, you should go to Domino's Pizza. That's not our customer. Our customer is the kind of person who loves trying new recipes, who loves cooking, and who wants to be doing that on a weekly basis. And we have, many, many of those customers, and the market is actually quite large. Busy, startup CEOs are not our target market. They're the kind of people who like cooking at home on a regular basis.
Right, and I think that gets to one of the questions that come up when people talk about this idea of the convenience economy, which again is a very broad category that lumps a lot of things together, but this idea that a lot of these companies are really serving the needs of affluent 20 or 30 something dudes in urban areas, and I'm getting the sense that that's not necessarily your user base. I think Rob, we were talking about that it's more diverse than that.
It's much more diverse, yeah, and it's one of the reasons that when we started up, we really wanted to be in New Orleans as one of our first test cities, because we wanted to find a smaller city that had a much more mixed income level and make sure that the model we're building works there. We're not out to build a luxury brand. We're out to build a grassroots company that enables local producers to connect to folks on the ground. We know that our prices beat Whole Foods by 10 to 15% in most categories, and it's because you have a direct relationship with the producer. There's so many fewer middlemen, and so it is really accessible service. The food is a high enough quality that it's easier to cook with it. We also love when people cook with our ingredients. We have a lot of prepared foods on the site, so probably 20% of our sales are prepared, ready-to-eat foods like rotisserie chickens or empanadas or things like that are coming from these great local chefs and their own food businesses. Also great on price point, beats restaurant price points to get prepared food direct from the producer. Right.
So you said it's 10 or 15% less than Whole Foods.
Yeah.
How does that compare to sort of like a Safeway or another kind of regular supermarket?
Safeway is probably competitive on some categories. It's going to be more expensive on proteins like meats and fish and eggs, but it's not a like-to-like comparison. The products that you're getting on Good Eggs are not, you couldn't find them in Safeway. They're coming from higher integrity places that are made with more sustainable practices, and ultimately it tastes so much better. It tastes the way food is supposed to taste when you harvest something when it's ripe and eat it the next day, instead of harvesting something 2 weeks before it's ripe, and then it sits on a supply chain, and then it sits on a shelf, and you eat it, weeks later. The taste is just totally different. The nutrient quality is totally different, and so it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, literally apples-to-apples comparison, to figure out the food on Good Eggs versus the food in Safeway.
Right. And Tony, can you talk a little bit about who's using DoorDash?
Absolutely. I mean, just to add to, I think, some of the comments that Rob meant, we also actually launched in a geography after, Palo Alto or the Peninsula, which may sometimes over-index in certain populations. And we launched in San Jose, a geography that's much more reflective of both the geography as well as the demographics of most United States cities for the same reason, right? Any fear that this might be just a product for a certain subset of Americans is certainly not true. In fact, San Jose was a market that grew much faster than our initial launch here in the Peninsula.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you all talked about this idea of trying to reach a broader audience, and you guys have also talked a little bit about price, especially Rob. And so I guess the question is, even if you're reaching a diverse audience and providing something that's valuable to them, there's probably a good chance they can get something, an alternative for cheaper. And do you feel like you're kind of in the category of kind of discretionary spending, where if somebody needs to tighten the belt, you're going to be one of the first things to go?
For us, yes and no. I mean, I guess, we're not selling a discretionary product. We're selling something that is food and is how you eat. So, even in a bad economy, you still need to eat.
But it's a little bit more expensive.
You can definitely get pizza or spaghetti and meatballs at home. And so in some sense, it's a little bit of a higher price point product. But at the same time, we've actually also done shopping comparisons, and our products are about 60% more expensive to go to Whole Foods than it is to replicate our recipes than to get it through us. And we also provide access to foods that people don't have. And so we find in our customer base, actually, that people who are cooking with us somewhat become dependent upon us because we've taught them how to cook, and this is how they get their food from us week after week after week after week. We stock their fridge for them. We do the thinking and the planning for them. And if you actually add up all the time, labor and food cost savings that we provide to them, it actually is a value for not just the high end, but for the mass market. We've priced our products deliberately to be a mass market price point. It's less than $10 a person a meal. Certainly in places like San Francisco and New York, you cannot do better than that. And in most of the country, that's also very affordable.
What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, people use Good Eggs for weekly grocery shopping. And so it's total necessity. And they could change the way they do their grocery shopping from Good Eggs and go to a discount supermarket. But if you talk to our customers, many of whom have small kids at home, their food budget and buying high quality food is the last thing that they'd cut because it's how they feed their family. It's how they act as a caretaker.
Right. So Tony, I don't think you can use the grocery answer. So do you think of it yourself as a discretionary item?
Not at all. I mean, if you think about, DoorDash as a logistics platform and the things that ultimately we can carry and deliver as we open up our technology, I mean, logistics powers every local economy, right? I mean, it's how we got these sofas up on stage. It's how we got the monitors in front of us, so on and so forth, right? And I think if you want to talk about food, I think you talk to our customers and what our moms say in particular, it's the first thing they consider, right? It's food on the table first, everything else second.
And so digging into that logistics side a little bit more, I mean, so you've talked about, pretty openly about the fact that you don't think DoorDash is just going to be doing food delivery. What can you say in terms of where you guys are going to move next?
Well, what we're doing right now is focusing only on building the technology to make reliability the core feature of our platform, right? And in order to do that, we've actually have to do that for 4 products. We have to build the products for our drivers, products for our merchants, products for our consumers, and obviously the central brains of the operation that make sure that everything's going on time. And so what you'll see, it actually doesn't really matter to us which vertical. It's a matter of building the technology to a point where it doesn't matter if we wanted to deliver a package or deliver another item in the household, so on and so forth.
So I also want to get a little bit more into the business model. I mean, you guys have all used the word logistics. Matt and Rob, you've also talked about the supply chain. Are you at the point now where, can you just talk a little bit about what the margins are like on, each unit, and if, you're at the point where you want to be? Maybe we'll start with Rob.
Sure, yeah. So the producers on Good Eggs, we have a little over 600 producers that are these businesses, farms, ranches, bakers, kitchens, people making pickles and jams, cutting flowers, prepared foods. They are setting their own prices on their own inventory, and then we're taking a flat commission on that for the sale. And so the incentives are totally aligned between the producers and Good Eggs, and then we're gross margin positive on orders. So when someone places an order, goes to the producers, we get our commission, and then our expenses getting the food from the producer to the customer's door, and we have great margins on that. What about you, Matt?
I mean, we have great gross margins in our business. They change a little bit week to week, but we manage them very tightly. One of the benefits of our product from a gross margin perspective, from a business perspective, is that our customers are members in our service, and so every week we pick the recipes that we offer each week. And the way we do that is we have a purchasing team that goes out and finds interesting farms, interesting suppliers, and highly seasonal, affordable ingredients. And so because we are able to look for what's fresh and affordable in the market and help curate that for our customers, that allows us to manage our food costs very, very tightly, which allows us to provide the meals at the price points we do and still make a really healthy margin on it.
So I imagine there are probably some people in the audience who are interested in this space and maybe actually want to start a company in this space. And I imagine also there's a lot of surprises when you try to do that. Any of you want to venture, some advice or things that you're not going to expect? And again, let's say something at least, similar to whatever each of you is doing that you'd offer as a piece of advice. I'm going to put Tony on the spot just because he's at the end. Or what has the biggest surprise been?
I would say the biggest surprise is just how complex all the moving parts are in terms of organizing everything, right? So the piece of advice here is to really understand each one of the audiences that you have to serve, and then think through what is the technology or sets of technologies to actually wire all of it together.
Anyone else want to offer some advice?
I'll give advice. In kind of a similar experience, that everything is hard and it's a super complicated business because you're building a whole supply chain in food, but I think the advice is the tech industry does have the power to make certain industries more convenient, and there is talent and capital here and great technology that can compete with any industry. And so given that power, if you're going to do a startup, do something that makes the world a better place. I know it's a trite message, but maybe we don't hear it enough, that you could actually do something that tremendously benefits the environment and tremendously benefits social justice and local businesses and creates the world that we want to live in, instead of just trying to take an existing industry and make it 10%, 20% more efficient and make a good margin on it. There's a chance for us to use our power as an industry to restructure some of our foundations of society to make them better for everybody.
And I think that's a really good note to end on. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Great.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for having
having
us.
us.